Welcome to this week's podcast. Today I'm joined by one of our new players in Jess. Hello.
Hiya, you all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. First of all, first question is, I want to ask you where the love of football came from.
Definitely my dad. Since when I was 5 and playing down at Wetherby, I was a full Leeds kit matched with a pair of white Nike Air Max.
Nice.
Very proud in what I was wearing.
Cool. So obviously your previous experience there, you've mentioned Wetherby. Is your full career been Wetherby then?
Yeah, so I joined Wetherby when I was 5 and there weren't actually any female groups at all. I was just by myself doing it, and then did that all the way through until I was 11, and the club turned around to my parents and said, as much as we don't want to, we can't allow your daughter to play for us anymore, because obviously as the lads grew older it was more physical and it was more of a bit of a safety issue as they sort of grew up. And then when I was 15, probably 15, 16, a new coach came into play called Pete Hall, and I decided to join up with the ladies again then. There was a coach sort of previous who was wanting to headhunt me, but I wasn't quite ready amongst sort of a few other things. So I waited until I felt the time was right for myself, and then got stuck back in until I was 18. And then most of our team went off to uni, so it just folded. There weren't enough players staying, and had a bit of time out really. I had a gap year before university, and I did actually do one game with Ripon with the reserves, because obviously through Wetherby, Mal knew who I was. But I didn't know if I wanted sort of the commitment, and I didn't want to mess sort of like a team about, or I was a bit undecided in my head really. But sort of as of, just after January, sort of this year, best decision I ever made to get back into it.
Yeah. So what was the appeal for Ripon, and why was that decision made?
I mean, all the way through me playing for Wetherby, Ripon were always the team to beat. And I think that's a continued theme, really. I don't think that that's ever disappeared. And then it was actually so teammate Leanna, she messaged me saying, do you want to come along? And we played alongside each other for Wetherby and stayed close friends even on the departure of football. And said, there's a couple of familiar faces, which I was aware of. Obviously the likes of Lizzie, she was, Ripon Panthers, Chloe as well, Demi. So a lot of these, you don't know who they are, but faces and sort of, on the pitch what they're like. And I actually said to Leanna at the time, I said, I'll definitely come down. I said, but I don't know about the commitment. And then before I know it, I'm absolutely loving it. Like back when, sort of the feeling I have now towards football is how I felt when I was 18, which I never thought I would get back. So that's great.
That's good, yeah. So would you say you'd recommend Ripon to other people as well?
Definitely, because one thing I've said really recently actually was that even with Wetherby, the amount of like social events, both set up by the club itself, but also outside that, us girls do amongst ourselves, I've never experienced that. Yeah. Sort of, been on top of social arrangements, and ultimately it adds, because there's a lot of, it's not dedicated or team building time, but the social events that you do, whether it's you go to the pub after for a bit of lunch, it all helps on field as well, because you get to know a person and kind of what they're like, which, as much as it's about understanding what a person's like on the pitch, playing style, etc., just having a good laugh and, understanding personalities is another great thing to be able to get to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd definitely say that even though you're one of the newer ones, you've fitted in straight away, and it doesn't even look like you. It just looks like you've been playing for us for years now.
I think as well that is down to, like everybody else. It is a very welcoming group. I think me personally, I am very socially confident, which obviously helps in new group situations. I sort of get myself stuck in, and I'm not really nervous on a social front. But as I say, it is absolutely down to the team, sort of, getting the invites to be able to do things outside of, your Wednesday training and your Sunday matches.
Yeah. So next bit is you've also been given a nickname at training by one of the coaches that's come down, Woody. Go Gadget Legs. So you're obviously quite good at running. I've never seen Chloe get beat for pace before by anyone, but you can give her a head start and still catch her up. So you've got a bit of running experience, do you not?
I do, yeah. Mainly from secondary school, I used to do the 200 metre and relay for North Yorkshire. It was something that I didn't necessarily look to be in, if you say. It was more at the time, sort of year 7, they kind of picked up on it, and then I got put into the athletics team. I did enjoy it to a certain degree for sure, but it was not something that I wanted to look at seriously, just on the basis that I much prefer team sports. I did have Harrogate Harriers say, come along, we'll be able to train you up and all of that kind of thing. But I remember it was a guy that said it at the time, and I just turned around and said, I totally appreciate the offer, but my love for football is much more than athletics.
Yeah.
Just chuckled and said, that's fair enough. And I think that's ultimately what it is I personally don't get as much satisfaction from winning races than I do if it's a collective team effort and, that, just collective spirit, really. It's one of those as well as you're sat for 3 hours and sort of middle of winter and you have this 30-second race, and that's what it is. It feels a bit not like a letdown, but in a sense, yeah, because you wait for so long and it's so short what you're actually doing. But at Wetherby, I got called Whippet, and so the names, although Go Gadget Legs is definitely a new one, and I have never heard it before, so hats off to Woody for that.
Yeah, so as you've mentioned before, obviously there was multiple options with football and running. What did you originally want it to be, or was it always football?
I never saw hobbies that I've had, I've never wanted to look seriously into. When I was about 8 years old, I did have a trial with Leeds United. Again, sort of went through it. That actually got recommended to me by a girl who was going down the same route. But I think in my head it was that my love for it is also the enjoyment and the part that you can have a laugh and it's not all dead serious all the time. That is a huge thing for me, and it brings a lot to my life, being able to have that massive social side to it. And obviously the atmosphere when you look at something, doing anything semi-professionally and sort of then looking to go even further if you want to, that social fun side becomes smaller and smaller. And again, I can remember turning around to my dad and saying, it's great that I'm here, but I don't want this. I want to do it as a hobby and just keep it that way. And both parents are always very supportive in every, career, I guess, choice that I have ever made. And I'm very glad that I have just kept it as a hobby, because I'm happiest when it is.
Yeah, that's always one of the different things when you do something you enjoy but it turns into work, that enjoyment slowly disappears, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. And I think as well, don't get me wrong, there's, males, females who love it being the job. But like you say, ultimately, whatever job or career you choose to have, you need to make sure you enjoy it as well. But I think as well, doing trials when you are still relatively young is a lot of pressure in itself. And it felt alien at the time because you go in and everything's so structured, and you go from, like, I was training, down at Wetherby at that time. You go from Sunday league, a laugh with your mates, and hang on a minute, there's people that are actually really watching me now. Nothing can really prepare you, I guess, because local football is nothing like going to a trial. Yeah. Whereas I feel sort of the whole athletics side is slightly different, because when you're been selected for that team, it's your PE teachers that do it. So you feel that those that are watching you have a sort of a working relationship with them already, because your PE teachers well, and vice versa. And they'll support you through it. Whereas obviously a stranger isn't supporting you through it. They're just being very critical on what they're seeing, off the bat, which is understandable.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you very much for that, Jess. We could listen and talk to you forever.
Yeah.
So
it's been nice.
That's that for today. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next week for the next podcast. Don't forget to click right down there to subscribe, and some more videos on the screen now for you to click. Podcast, the other thing, the match days. See you next time.